On having a bit of a discussion with me. It's been a long time since I was up there in Sydney watching you play over the years and winning the premiership in 2005 with Roosie. But really great to have you on chatting about your journey, I guess, from the junior into senior footy and then getting into the Swans Academy. Obviously, drafted first draft pick for the Swans back in '95. So, tell us a little bit about, I guess, that coming out of Norwood Footy Club, going up to the Big Smoke in Sydney.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Thanks for having me. It has been a long time. Look, I guess for me, I grew up in Adelaide. I'm the eldest of five boys, so a lot of, we were a very active family, playing all sorts of sport. Aussie rules was the one probably loved the most. That's where I guess I spent a lot of my energy. So I did go to Ross Trevor College. A lot of my football was done at school. There was some great coaches there, and then in the school holidays when school footy wasn't on, I was in the Nord junior programs. So I guess when I got to under 17, as it was then, I was the last year of under 17 before they did move it to under 18. We played for South Australia in the Teal Cup, and I actually did have a decision to make because I think it was 97, Port Adelaide came into the competition. My dad did actually play local footy in Adelaide for Port Adelaide, so there was a bit of a family connection. And a lot of the guys that I played with had the option of either entering the draft or not, and being able to be put onto Port Adelaide's list. But I guess I'd seen a couple of guys who were a little bit older than me who didn't go on the draft straight out of juniors, and then because they said, "I'll go and play senior football." But what happened was they got injuries in that senior football, and they then missed their opportunity to go into they missed their opportunity in terms of they weren't taken as a high draft pick. The following year, they were probably taken as a low draft pick, and instead of getting a long junior contract, they only got 1 year. So they had to basically make or break 1 year. And I guess I had the mentality, and I was happy to move interstate. I didn't have to, I do like Adelaide, love Adelaide, but I was more than happy to move away from home. I had the two clubs that were chasing the most were Sydney and Collingwood. A lot of ex-Nord players have gone to Collingwood, so I was happy to go there. And Sydney had been announced as to host the Olympics, and I absolutely love the Olympics. So I was sort of like, well, I can't lose. I've either got to, this is 95. I guess it's a lot of people, a lot of young footballers, your careers only last 3 years. So for me to go, I've got a house in 5 years' time for the Olympics, it might have been a bit bold statement, but I was pretty confident if I worked hard, then that I'd be able to have that. And so I went through the draft process. It happened pretty quick. Number 8, over to Sydney. I think that was on a Friday. The following Monday, packed up, come over to Sydney. We had about 2 or 3 weeks of training before going back to Adelaide for Christmas. 2 weeks off there, packing my bags, and I don't think I've been back in Adelaide for longer than 2 weeks since that time back in '95. So, it happened everything sort of happened pretty quick at that stage, and couldn't be happier living here in Sydney.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, we do talk to our kids about, I guess, different pathways and journeys, and everyone's always going to be a bit different. And as you were talking about, I guess some of your colleagues that you played with, you do have some decisions to make, and a lot of our kids, we have to make that decision. I mean, the big thing that's on the radar for them is going over to the US potentially, not necessarily turning professional right away, going to go through the college system and having that. So yeah, you are pretty young, and the change is pretty drastic, but obviously it worked out really well for you.
It did, and I always, as much as I've got asked, Mum got. I mean, I was only 17, so I was a bit younger than the boys nowadays that get drafted because you have to be 18. But Mum gets asked. We're sad to see your son go, but ultimately, I always saw it as you only have one opportunity to really live your dream, and this is, playing professional sport isn't, it's not quite a job. It is living a dream. So to have to move away, do whatever, I was certainly prepared to do that. So, yeah, it's never forever. Your professional career, I was very lucky. I think I played for 13 years, but it goes so quickly that, to move away from family and friends and all that for 10 years, for me, is not really that big a deal in the scheme of things. You can always come home. You're always a phone call away. Maybe not at the moment. You can't cross borders, but, certainly normally when things are happening, you're only ever a plane flight away or that type of stuff. So, if you really want to, make it in elite sport, you've got to be prepared to travel.
Yeah, no, that's a great message, mate. Just want to what we've been working on a little bit with our kids, just on some of the things, and I put that pie chart up there for you, and just talking about elite habits in that. I mean, as you said, as a junior sportsman, looking at a lot of those things on the pie chart, as far as your body management, your psych, your sports psych. Like how much did that change when you left the junior mentality going into that senior mentality?
Look, I was pretty lucky. Obviously everything's to a different level. Like, you have to be, you can't pick and choose. When you're a kid, you get to pick and choose. I can have bit of Maccas here and there, that type of stuff. You're still growing up. When you want to be an elite athlete and you've got to train as often as they do, you can't afford to take shortcuts. You can't afford that. I was pretty lucky. I don't know why, but I just had instilled with me, it was obviously some good coaching, parents, but I just had really good habits when I moved from Adelaide to Sydney. I do remember, even as a 17, 18-year-old, being used as an example to older players about just being professional, about taking care, eating the right foods. I ate the right foods or understood foods at that point in time. Like, everything constantly changes, and that's why elite programs have dietitians, they have nutritionists who study that. And the meals back in the day were, before game, was simply having pasta the night before, that type of stuff. But that changed a little bit now with philosophies, whatever the dietitians say. Not being a totally elite athlete right at the moment myself, I may not have those great eating habits, but I was just someone who was prepared just to listen to people and take on the fact that they're in their position. No one wants anyone to fail. So I just listened to, whether it be the dietitian, whether it be a physio, whether it be a coach, whatever they wanted, I just did, and I did it to the extreme, or to the letter. It wasn't, for example, an injury, when it said ice. People say when you hurt yourself, ice every 20 minutes on, off. It wasn't, I just do that for an hour or so and then stop. When I had injuries, I'd do it all night. You'd set alarms, wake up every hour to do that type of thing, because, I was just, whether I'd wired a bit differently. I was just took things to the extreme, and it just worked in my favour that I was able to, I guess, train regularly, which allowed me to play regularly, get consistency, get confidence. And, when you're at that elite level, we've all got talent. We've all got ability. It's your ability to have confidence and consistency, which separates, I guess, the greats from those who are middle of the road. And I just found consistency, which allowed me to, by doing all those little things, allowed me to, I guess, have a successful career.
Yeah, and look, I guess what stands out in that message for me is just that level of commitment that you had to that. So whether that was something that we're having five older brothers, or but that level of commitment all the way through your journey. And I guess we spoke before coming on here about your record with the Swans as far as the consecutive games since, and that was really from when you, I guess, played your first senior game to that 194th game. I mean, that really, probably, if you were to look back at that level of consistency, what you spoke about, that's sort of why you weren't getting injured, and you just looked after so many things. And I guess that's just a testament to your career without having that record.
Yeah, look. There's obviously an element of good DNA, and I thank my parents for that. But it was, as I said, I had injuries, but it was about how to deal with it, how to work with the physios, how to work with that to enable me to get up each week. I don't love. I certainly at that stage don't love watching footy. I want to get out there and play it. So, I was doing everything. I just had this mindset because you do look around and you saw players that had short careers or were good enough but never quite made it, that I wasn't going to let anything stand in my way. And even I guess you do talk about social, and there's those challenges for young athletes. They're 18. Okay, I can go out now and experience that. And um, I made choices, and I always call them choices. I don't stand by that athletes ever make sacrifices. I don't. It's just, again, maybe a bit of my mindset. I don't believe that. I believe you make a choice, and you simply choose to do the right thing or you don't. So, even that young social aspect, I made choices. Okay, you hang out with your teammates, but I don't need to be out drinking for starters. And one of the big things was when I first went across, I was underage. So that was an easy thing. Well, I'm underage. I'm not going to do that. It's about having that discipline and simply I'm not going to be out all night because it means it's going to interfere with my sleep and all the rest of it. And let's be honest, when you win an AFL premiership, those little choices that I made when I was 17, celebrating a premiership win, the parties you get invited to, the experiences there. I mean, I could have one of those for 100 when you're 18. So, you make choices earlier and you're rewarded later. And if that is something you're desperate or need in your life, and you make it, you're going to get that in the long run.
Yeah, it's funny because just while this COVID has been happening, don't know if you've been watching it, but on Netflix I've been watching the Michael Jordan doco, which I know a few of our kids and definitely the coaches have watched, and just that competitive drive and commitment of a world class athlete in Jordan. I mean, that message really drives home in his doco, and that's something, yeah, that you definitely are talking about there.
I got that on the list to watch, but I've been watching. I have been watching, whether on Prime, whether it be all the NFL, All or Nothing. I just finished watching the New Zealand All Blacks All or Nothing. So just watching all that different sport, that it is just taking. If I can, as a coach, just take one little thing out of all those things, and I'll definitely watch the Last Dance at some point and see how that goes. But yeah, it's been. You do look for positives. It has been the one positive come out of this sitting at home. Certainly no real TV. Just watch these sporting docos. Try and be inspired.
Right, yeah, cool. So just to go into the coaching, I've got a little just from your Swans. Um, uh, just a little. Wait, hang on, let me get my screen set up here. Where are we? Can you see that?
You've got a blue screen.
Here we go.
That's it.
Got that now?
Yep.
So just a little transition into your coaching here was I just found this obviously now looking after the academy. So this was an interview I think it was probably a couple of years ago, but just a little bit on your role.
Two defenders. I want it going into a forward line, 3v2 down there. All right, so we practice that.
So just tell us a little bit about your journey as a coach through the.
Yeah, well, originally started off the academy many years ago before heading into development with the senior program and development, identifying talent, getting the most out of the kids is what I enjoy most. So it was a couple of years ago coming back to the academy in a more permanent role and working with the young players, working hard to develop their skill set, share my experience both as a player and as a senior coaching program, giving them all the hints I can to get the most out of them. And look, I really enjoy the development aspect and younger players.
How much of a kick do you get out of seeing a younger player come in, who's fairly raw, and then they really come in?
The greatest rewards are teaching something and seeing the player execute it, whether it is a skill, whether it's teaching them a pattern of play or whatever it might be. That's where the real satisfaction is. Yeah, we're all competitive beasts. We all like to win. but ultimately, you know, seeing someone learn something, do it, is satisfaction out. And I guess that it goes further than that. Like last year, James Bell, Jake Brown ending up on the senior list. That's equally incredibly rewarding.
How much can the under-18s boys pushing for the draft learn from guys like Jake Brown?
Well, they learn is pathway. What we do here is seen in a positive aspect from our recruiters. I guess it'd be nice to get other recruiters to have a look at the guys and realise that there is a lot of talent here in Sydney. Get more boys able to live the same dream that I did when I was a youngster. Senior AFL football.
Awesome there, Crouchy.
Thanks, mate. Look, it is, I guess we were talking earlier, and it's, I do talk about the passion of developing. And so I've been in Sydney now, what is it now, 24, 25 years. And spoke about how I did grow up in Adelaide. And I went to Ross Trevor College, where you went to school, you're obviously able to play school sport, but it wasn't as if you weren't allowed to do things in terms of play sport. So we had we obviously had first 18 AFL football team. You had soccer teams, you had basketball teams. They had, I'm not sure, I think it's first 15 rugby union team. I was staggered when I came over here as a 17, 18-year-old. So I come over here, I did back in the day. I was probably the first semi-professional, because we'd have to do all our training or our weights training at 6 a.m. in the morning. We'd have all day because there were still guys who were working or studying. So I'd go and study, and we'd come and train at 5 o'clock at night. And that only probably lasted 1 or 2 years before we started the more professional where you're training during the day. So I did a bit of primary school teaching. One of the guys I was teaching or studying with, his brother was a teacher at one of the really big exclusive private schools here in Sydney. And he was doing his prac teaching at that same school. And they wanted me to come along and just simply help with their rugby boys, teach them to kick. Nothing else other than that. It took them 2 years for the principal to allow an AFL person into the school, because you go to these big private schools and AFL was banned. It wasn't allowed. I didn't understand that. I obviously love all sport. I love our game. And for me, in this environment, kids not getting that opportunity, I couldn't believe. So I spent a lot of time as a player going and developing the game, and never saw myself as a coach. Sort of retired, had a year off, travelled, wasn't really sure what I was going to do. And then it was a call from a combination of Paul Roos and John Longmire, because Paul was working the academy, John was now the senior coach, with a role which is sort of what I was doing now, working with some older age academy boys who would help with our reserve grade side, and then went in there and gave it a go, and I guess I've enjoyed every aspect. One of the things that it's really difficult to talk about with not people who are in AFL-based states, and I mean the Victorians of South Australia and WA, is I don't have any generational knowledge here. Most of the kids who are playing sport, their dads have played rugby. No one has played AFL. So do talk about having 5 brothers. But I had a dad who played. I had mum who knew how to kick the ball. I had grandmas, I had grandpas, I had aunties, uncles, who all knew how to do the very basic skills of AFL, which we don't have here. And it is quite, the rugby codes. It's a throw. It's they're kicking. They put the ball on the ground and they kick it off the ground. So they don't have to coordinate their hands and their feet together to kick a ball. So it's quite technical when you really get to that aspect. So, to be able to stay in the development and go to the academy and work there and try and develop players is what I'm passionate about. And there are 2 levels. It's our youngest kids are under 11. I'd actually love to be able to get younger, because I think when you are teaching now, the implication of fundamental skills really does need to start at a real younger age, because it takes so long to change a technical flaw in a teenager. It takes 3-4 years to change when you're in the heat of battle and you're just going to go back to what you know. You've got the technical side of it, and then there is the teaching of the game and the patterns and all the rest of it, which is at that older age. And that's what I love, the variety, and equally now, which we've probably been doing for about 3 or 4 years is obviously boys and girls. Teaching, I guess everyone our game, and it's we are. Don't ever kid yourself. The AFL is a great national sport, but we're still a minority sport here in New South Wales. The newspapers. You pick up a newspaper. We're lucky to get one article in a paper at the moment. Where I have no doubt that the Tizer where you are back there, you still have 7 or 8 pages dedicated to the Crows and Port Adelaide every day. So I love the teaching. I love as I said in that little video clip, I'm a competitive beast. I love winning. Don't get me wrong, but I love seeing either a pattern of play, the players go out and do it. I love seeing a kid learn a new skill. I was, as part of my development coaching the reserve grade side, I was in the room for a lot of players who John Long and I would call in. You get, they'd think they might be in trouble or something, but they get that being told they're playing their first senior game. Those moments are what's truly special, and I love that aspect.
Yeah. And I guess, for us tennis coaches, I know you played a little bit of tennis on the side in some of those little exhibition matches, but as you know, we're very technical, and the argument with all of us as the talent coaches as well is trying to get all those fundamentals right, because it's a tough shift when they get a bit older to try and make those changes, and so that's always something that we're looking towards to do a better job with, and constantly there's enough information out there and different skill set. Just with that, with a different sport, what about you spoke about, I guess, with kicking and being AFL new sport up in New South Wales, but like basketball, that I've found a little bit, because I've had girls now that have played a little bit of basketball that moved and they're playing some AFL, and some of the skills that I've actually seen for them in the basketball court, even on the tennis court movement, like it's been a pretty awesome, I guess, changeover in a sense to bring those skill sets. Is that a sport that you feel like helps AFL as well?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's no doubt, and it's not. I'm a big thing on young children playing lots of different sports. Absolutely. You get so many different skill sets. The basketball, the obviously the catching of the ball, the in close movement, getting around traffic, the vision for the quick passes, like our handball. There's no doubt that's you take that type of stuff out. I was hoping, and I'm still hoping I can get over there. I'm a kicking coach and kicking and catching coach for Japanese women's rugby. Been working with their 7 side, preparing for a home Olympics, and obviously haven't been able to go over and see any of them. But I obviously take the kicking technique and the catching technique and try and teach them, but as well as looking at how they set up drills, what patterns are they running, and how can I implement that into what our teaching. A lot of our teaching, so we obviously need technical fundamentals. We've got to get that right. And that's not to say everyone has to be the same. We can all hold the ball slightly different, as long as there's no point. And I reckon this is any sport. You're not going to hit a tennis ball if you're off balance. There's a lot of kicking where kids kicking the ball and they're not balanced, or they have a jerky motion, or or after they execute that fraction of a second, they're then off balance. You've got to be balanced through a skill. There's a lot of that learning, and when it gets to that next level, and we've learned a lot off soccer, it's all about playing games, and as a coach, thinking about how can I change a rule or tweak a rule to get an outcome that I'm looking for. I don't want to tell the kids what I'm doing. I just want to write whatever it might be. Okay, now you can't run. And when you're playing a game, so you can't kick, you can't run, you're playing a handball game. It actually means that the ball moves so much faster than the individual. So the kids learn that, geez, rather than hold on to the ball too quickly, I can release the ball a lot quicker, and it creates outcomes. It creates learnings that hopefully go into a game, because as much as you want to there's obviously was a period where you wanted to structure so much. You know yourself, there's so much, so many different variables certainly in the game of football, that the athlete, the footballer, needs to be able to make different decisions. And hopefully by that, changing rules and playing lots of games, you're creating different environments for them regularly that they're able to just think for themselves rather than being, I need to get from A to B, which is not what you want. You need them to think a little bit what I need them to be, and that's the first challenge is, right, I can't just kick the ball down the line because the opposition's there. I need to kick the ball across the field, but I need to be technically sound to be able to do that. And that's the great juggling act that I find as a coach.
Yeah, so it's having that, and I agree there 100%. You have that structure that you can set that structure in, but then we talk about thinking out of the box a little bit. You're trying something which as coaches, some of it looks ridiculous, but if it actually gets the outcome of what you're trying to do, it's actually it's almost fitting the pieces of the puzzle together.
It's teaching the kids, and by bringing rules, try and think above the shoulders. Certainly tennis is a great example. Being able to identify what your opponent's weaknesses are straight away. And that's what I keep talking to our players about. It's easy for me to sit up in the box and see what's going on and send a message. But the challenge is when you've got one runner to get out there and tell 18 players what's going on, quite difficult. So the ability for the best players to identify our speed is beating the opposition, or our tools are outmarking them, or the wind is going across the ground, down, whatever those type of things are, the more you can think about what's going on, staying in the game, not just simply think about, I just need to get a kick, I need to get a kick, then, that's obviously the next, part of it, which you're trying to bring into those games we're playing, that learning. And that's why whenever we do a lot of stuff, we'll bring in the rules, and at the end you do, right, come in, what did you find? Trying to get the answers from them, rather than telling them, did you know that when I stopped you from running that you had to handle it? Trying to get what they feel out of it so they can make those better decisions on the park.
Yeah. So Crouchy, with the Swans Academy, obviously the club, as we know and we see in the media, the club's just got this great philosophy and values that really have held the club in good stead since winning that premiership back in 2005. That's obviously been brought across, you being in charge now a little bit with the academy, but what are the values that you really hold for the academy and with the young boys, like boys coming in there? Because we always talk as coaches about, well, you got to get the environment right. Got, and for a footy club, you've got all these different kids coming in, all different, backgrounds and the rest of it. And we have the same challenges, with our environments, bringing different kids in that, may not get along with other kids. But where's the Swans Academy get it right with that? Yeah,
look, I think it's, I'm not going to say we always get it right, but I guess, part of me coming to the academy was obviously my passion for development, but it equally was because I'd spent time with the senior program, was to continue the flow in language, and there are times where you do use structure, so it flowed through the whole academy. We do want, we do know that there's certain things you've got to have. You've got to have discipline to be a professional athlete. But there are silly little things that we do. Like we do not want our players wearing their caps backwards. I know it's going to be a shock for tennis people because they obviously spend a lot of time with it. But we just see that players doing that as a disciplined thing. And certainly I'm less, certainly Chris, who I work with, is the boys put anything on social media. He's all over it. Guys, we've spoken about it. This is just one little thing that we hold value. It's trying to find something the players can hold on to that is just a simple rule. And it's amazing that the boys post a photo and they got their hat backwards. How many, they might have all their other friends saying stuff, but a Swans Academy kid will come on straight away and go, your hat's backwards, mate. Hat's backwards. They get on that. So I guess one of the things about the Swans culture, it's about the players living, breathing, policing the values, and that's a simple little one we have. The big thing, and it's the thing I talk about a lot when I talk to other coaches, is this word respect. I make sure I never just use respect. It's always show respect, because I find when you watch a lot of just the world, that the word respect's been changed since our day. A lot of what we're growing up is we had to show respect to our elders. We had to show respect to earn respect. Now, I feel that's been turned on its head with younger people going, I've got an opinion, you got to respect my opinion. They want the respect first. They want to gain respect. So a lot of what we talk about is when we go out in the football field, we've got to show respect to the opposition. We've got to show respect to all the officials, because at the end of the day, we want to come off that field, win, lose or draw, earning the respect of the opposition, that we've played the game in the right spirit, the right way. So that for me is something that I drill into them before matches, at training. They fully understand what this word respect really means. Because again, you walk into every school around and they have their school crest, have words. I reckon on 80% of the school, the words were written there, respect. But I don't reckon, my feeling is so much of it now is taught, you got to respect. The individual is wanting respect rather than showing it. And that for me is a simple, big one that I push really hard in the academy. And so much, you get that right, you show respect to your teammates, you earn the respect of your teammates. You build the trust, which means when you're out in the football field, someone's tackling, someone's got your back. You earn it. And that's ultimately what you need in a team sport.
And as coaches, you obviously, the kids are out there training and putting in hard yards. Well, they're going to gain your respect as well.
Yep, absolutely. And equally, I've got to, I'm respectful I show respect to them because I need to earn their respect as well. And, it's the more we keep showing it, the more we gain it from everybody else, the more successful, the more people around you are, in my opinion.
And we had Ollie Florin on talking to the boys and some of our coaches, and really, good young kid coming up to Sydney. Yeah. And, he did talk about the club's accountability. Yeah. And I think one of the stories that he told, which we loved, was, I think one of the first few weeks he was up there and he was a little bit late to training. And I guess that's a bit of a discipline thing. And the whole club, all the boys, including Buddy, I think, had to do some extra running because he was late. And he said, I've never been late to another session.
Yeah, absolutely. And, started and I work with him, he frustrated me as a teammate, Nick Davis, who, the two of us are the two academy coaches. And he was, he obviously had that famous quarter, which helped us get into the preliminary final and ultimately the grand final against Geelong. And we all saw his talent, but he was undisciplined. And he was certainly one. Ollie did it once. Nick did it about 6 or 7 times, missing stuff, whatever. And it is awesome as a teammate and now a great friend, seeing how he's now developed into a man, daughter of his own, how he teaches the kids at the academy, and he goes, don't make the same mistakes as I made. He understands that and he's able to teach it and that. So yeah, Ollie's exactly right. Then certainly coming into that as a youngster coming in the environment, you don't want, to let Buddy down or anyone like that. But equally, Buddy doesn't want to let you down, because no one, certainly in a football club, we can talk about, it is at balance. You need that element of individual flair. You've got that. You've got your own flavour, but it's how you do bring it into a team environment, but it can't be disruptive to everybody else. Because ultimately it doesn't matter, I don't care how good Buddy is. Buddy's never going to win a game on his own because Buddy can't win the ruck, tap it down to himself, give a hand pass to himself and kick a goal by himself. You need a team to work together, and you don't want to let your mates down. No one wants to be in certainly a footballing environment, isolated or push over to the side and said, no, you're not part of the team. And that's, that simple little bit of discipline, the behaviours that the players set. And they are slightly different to when I started. Yep, we were our group back in 2003, original group who did put the behaviours together, but it has changed, and rightly so, because this current group of players need to own those behaviours. They need to set the tone. They need to do what they feel is right to get there. But I have no doubt maybe some of the words have changed, but I'm pretty certain that ultimately it is pretty much the same, but different.
Yeah, and if you were to, this is just a question from me, but with the characteristics of, I guess, personality, and if you were to pick one thing that you would be looking for in that junior athlete that would just be an absolute standout, and if they had that, what would that characteristic be, or that value?
Look, it's resilience, and resilience to me encompasses a lot of things. Sometimes we think too much of resilience about the person who comes back from injury. And for me, it's not always that, and that's obviously a part of it. You got to be resilient to rock up the training every day and train at your hardest, because it's hard work, physically demanding. You got to have resilience to eat the right food, get the right amount of sleep, back in day out, to allow you to get that consistency, which I spoke about earlier. So the players that have the resilience, which for me encompasses discipline and work ethic, then you're going to get there. Or then you're certainly going to. There's still need a little bit of luck. That's the reality of it. But that's the one driving force, because I don't care how talented you are. I'm a wealth of knowledge, as I say to the players. I've been there, I've done it, but I can't make you do that run. I can't make you do that kick. There's things I cannot do. I can talk about it till the cows come home, but ultimately you've got to be resilient enough to rock up every day, determined enough to do it. And the ones that do, combined with a few other factors, are the ones that ultimately make it.
Yeah, no, that's great. Mate, and just wanted to talk a little bit more, staying on the academy, just for us, there's some changes going on for Tennis Australia in performance, and how the regional structure will work in each state for us, and some of the national, we're setting up zone squads, some state squads. How does it work for the academy with you as the senior coach in the academy there, with some of your regional squads, I guess, around New South Wales, and then also the education piece, which you spoke about with some of the other coaches. What do you guys do around that as an environment?
Yeah, so to give you an example, so we've got, I think it's about 10 different hubs for our academy. We're as far south as Wollongong, because basically New South Wales is cut in half with us and the Giants. So we've got Wollongong, we've got about 5 or 6 hubs in around the city area, eastern suburbs, northern beaches, north, south. We've got the Central Coast, we've got Newcastle, we've got Port Macquarie, and we've got Coffs Harbour. Now, some of those regional academies are quite small, like Coffs Harbour, and we might have 10 athletes there. One thing we found is that the quality of athletes been pretty good. In that video you saw, Jake Brown was on the senior list for a year, come from Coffs Harbour. They probably, in terms of the way it rolls, they always bat above their weight. It is difficult for those guys to get down to Sydney. We don't expect it. They're at school. Focus still has to be on your schoolwork. And it is, and again, you talk about things that have been positive during this time of shutdown, is learning simple media like this, where we can have face-to-face, where we can share screenings. I've constantly wanted, one of the things I did when I was a player is I did a couple of days where I went to the School of the Air. So I went to a place in Sydney where, again, I was on a camera. I was able to talk to school kids all over New South Wales. It was just a fun day. That was when I was part of the Swans.
Yeah.
I don't want to constantly have to bring athletes or travel through Sydney traffic to come to the SCG to be educated. So to learn different medias like this, where I can show bits of vision. I'm constantly using training vision of our older boys, and senior vision, that I constantly cut up. I do a lot of screen records, or I'll be talking over it, send that out to our coaches. I put stuff online for our players that's based around learning from patterns of play. That's not just what the Swans do. That's what other teams do. So, they increasing their knowledge, obviously have access to, behind the goals vision from the AFL. So sometimes it's great watching side-on vision of a game of AFL, but all of a sudden a player pops up on his own out on a wing. How did that happen? So to be able to watch the whole thing behind the goals, to watch running patterns and show how the player was watching the shape of what was going on. We use vision like that, both for players and coaches. I do try and go a little bit of travelling for our regional kids, but again, that's difficult just with the what happens with our top end talent. We do, and that's why it's great with Nick Davis and I. We do bring our probably once every 3 weeks. Our Newcastle Central Coast kids will come down and join our North kids, our Northern Beaches, who will join our Wollongong kids will come up. So there's a North hub and a South hub in their ages where Nick and I can have a look at them and then give feedback back to the coaches who need to keep working on kick, mark, hand pass, whatever it is. So constantly trying to find other ways to communicate, understanding that we've got just under 1,000 athletes, boys and girls, in our academy, ages from 11 to 19. We've got about 80 odd coaches. Some of those are strength and conditioning. I'll touch on them in a minute. All other than Nick and I, all our other coaches are simply coach for us one night a week. They are passionate AFL people, Aussie rules people. None of them played at the highest level. Some of them haven't even played local football. So as I talk about that generational knowledge, some of them are dads in the program. It's for me, it's a great challenge, and I guess it's the same challenge with schools. You really want a great program. You need to be able to pay coaches massive costs, because I'm living in Sydney. The cost of having you can't rely on people working 9 to 5 if you want a great product. So the more I can put into them, but I don't expect them to watch everything, because someone might be, as I said, they're working 9 to 5 with their own job. Certainly come end of financial year time, I know I've got coaches who can't get there. We just have to do what we can, and that's the great challenge we have. Not have an endless supply of money, and it's only going to get harder. And that's why we're looking for resources like this as we go forward with, certainly all sporting worlds taking a massive hit in the coming years to recover from COVID-19 and what we have to get money back into the grassroots. But you just have to work as much as you can, keep looking for ways. I understand that all kids don't learn the same. I think that's a big thing. I'm not a believer that a kid can't do something because he doesn't listen to you. I believe as a coach, I haven't found how he learns best yet. And if you see that talent, how am I going to keep challenging myself to get my message across? Do I have to get out there with him and work at a training session? Is it I need to get a peer to teach him? Is that how he's going to learn? Is it through watching something on vision? Is it they need to write it down? All the different learning things. Probably the one thing I do remember from those primary school days all the way back was simply that we learn differently and how we get there. So look, it is a challenge with all our hubs. Challenge because also I'm in a state that I get so envious when I go back to Adelaide and I go to the parklands around the city there and I see AFL ground after AFL ground after AFL ground and go, how good's this? We're going to try and teach AFL on a rugby pitch, which is reality is I need 4 rugby pitches all together to get the right size. So you're constantly thinking about what you can teach on the environment that you have, and it is what it is. It's you don't whinge about it. You go, right, this is the next challenge. How do I overcome that? How do I think as a coach to get my outcome? What do I need to learn in the environment I have with the kids I've got, with how they learn? So nothing's easy. It's not meant to be. It's just it's that constant, even I say to young coaches, nothing's black and white. There's so much grey. How can I just keep thinking to get the outcome?
That's awesome. Well, mate, definitely can hear as far as high performance coaching, the philosophies and beliefs of what you believe in is, that's where all the kids, those 1,000 kids in the academy, they're very lucky to have you, I guess, steering the ship and all that knowledge over the years. I know you've had some good mentors. I think for all of us coaches, those are things that I think we're trying to do a better job with tennis and having a lot more cross discussions with other sports like yourselves and also with internally. So really appreciate your time.
One quick one. If you talking about, I mentioned the S&C coaches. One of the big things I think is really important as a coach too is never. Why I say Nick Davis and I work so well together. I know that Nick Davis is one of the best technical coaches that's there. I want to work so close with him. It's not about I'm the coach. We work together, and it's the same with our S&C coaches. That's there, as I spoke about, and again, it's the philosophy I had when I was as a coach, as a player growing up. The dietitian, the physio, they all have their role. They're all important. It's making sure that you find time to integrate them. But our strength and conditioning staff works so closely with them because it's also understanding that kids these days, they don't jump fences like we used to. They don't ride their bike down to the local shop and they don't have the same, because we are restrictive in what we do as parents. And I'm exactly the same. I wouldn't let my eldest is 7. And I actually I even remember it where it is. And you might even know this, just by Pembroke College there on the Nord Parade. It's actually not there anymore because Pembroke bought it. It was a service station. I started year 3 at Ross Trevor.
Yeah.
Year 3 in Ross Trevor. My best mate, who's my best mate to this day, we started at school together. We're riding our bikes going down to the local deli to get some mixed lollies as we were as 8 or 9-year-olds. And there was Trent. Hey, how you going? We've been best mates ever since that day. We were 3 streets from home. And I'm probably not going to let my kids ride their bikes. So a lot of our strength and conditioning programs are all based about trying to create jumping, falling environments for kids that they just don't have because they're not as hand-eye coordination as they used to be because of simply what we did as kids. The world's changed. So, as coaches, it's working in with so many different people, never being afraid of having someone, employing someone, getting knowledge of someone who's smarter than you in an area to get an outcome. And I reckon that's incredibly important for coaches. And you're touching on, I'm a big NFL fan, and you watch all sports. I'm a New England Patriots man because I love the Patriot philosophy. I want the New York Giants to be successful this year because if you listen to their head coach, Joe Judge, who again, I get it, he's come from the Patriots. Everyone talks about him coming from nowhere. Straight away, he was not afraid to employ Jason Garrett, Freddie Kitchens. Now, they're 2 former head coaches who just got sacked. One's his quarterback coach, his other's his offensive coordinator. He's very much going, I don't know everything. No one knows everything. He's getting smart people in there. And he does talk about in everything in his philosophy is, as a coach, we are here, and I know NFL, that is a really structured game. Our role is to put these players in a position to be successful. You've got to identify what their strengths are and come up with something that gets the most out of them. And as someone who's lived through 2 Super Bowls, a perfect season where this almost perfect season when the New York Giants beat the Patriots in both those 2 Super Bowls, I want the New York Giants to be successful because I reckon that is a outstanding philosophy as a coach, and I think there needs to be more of that, of coaches listening to that at all levels, never being afraid to have people smarter than you around, listening, taking it in, being people managers and allowing your athletes or putting your athletes in positions to be successful. And I think that's incredibly, incredibly important.
Well, yeah, awesome, and thanks for not stopping with your S&C because we very much value that space in all the academies. I've been fortunate enough. I've been in Adelaide for just over 4 years now, and we've had some really good S&C guys come through here, and they actually set up a program called FADS, which is fundamental athlete development skills. So, they've basically put that program in a lot of the academies across the country, and it's a lot of that, what you spoke about, those motor skills and doing different things, before getting onto the tennis court. So we are, and I value that 100%, especially with our S&C guys, getting them out on court rather than in the gym, so to speak, all the time, and having a look at what our kids are doing, and then maybe integrating what needs to happen a bit more in the gym, not necessarily just lifting weights and that.
Absolutely.
So it's a big component. But mate, appreciate your time today, and good to catch up with you. And I think if any of our coaches or athletes want to reach out to you with a few questions, feel comfortable.
No worries. Absolutely.
To send you a message. So, but
Sounds
mate,
good.
good luck. I know the boys are back to training, so hopefully we'll get some competition going in the next few months.
Hopefully, absolutely, mate. No, pleasure to be on. Great to see you again. It's I hope all sports. We've obviously taken some steps. Still a little way to go in our country, but great to have sport back and getting back to our great lifestyle soon.
All right, mate. Look after yourself. Take care.
You too. Thanks, buddy.